clutching. Whether you love it or hate it, we all have to do it. And when you're in that 1 versus 3 and the entire game relies upon you, it's only your own confidence that can get you out of there. And that confidence comes from knowledge. Now, before you dive straight into the next 1v5 guns blazing, hoping to become the next hero of your game, you need to take a tiny second, and I mean max half a second, thinking if this is the round that you should try to clutch. Is it possible at all for you to win it, or should you actually just try to save to get a gun for the next round? Now, this isn't an easy question to answer, especially not that fast, but clutching is all about split-second decision-making and decision-making based on pure instinct. You don't really have time to think everything through, you just have to act. The first few things you should look at are the more obvious ones, such as if it is the last round of the half, then you might as well go for it. Are your opponents on 12 rounds, then you need to go for it, because otherwise you will lose the game. Are you ahead 10-0, then you might as well go for it for fun, like your team probably has enough cash to just buy the rest of the half or the rest of the game, so you might as well try to win that clutch. After this, it becomes a little bit more difficult to answer. You need to consider your advantages. How many opponents are there? Is it a 1v5? Then odds are you will probably not win it, and if it's a normal game, 6-4, 5-5, then it's better to save your gun, get a better buy the next round. And when you do save, try to make it as expensive as you can for the opponents without dying. The other two main factors to consider would be the information and your position. Information as in, what do your opponents know versus what you know? Do they have no idea where you are and you know exactly where they are and you're in, let's say, a 1v3? Then that's actually quite a big advantage, especially if you would, let's say as an attacker, know that they're all on B. Then you can go to A with the bomb, if you have the bomb, that is. Though that type of information, ultis, flashes, every tiny detail should go into your decision, and it should go in a heartbeat. There is also your own position to consider. Are you an attacker having the bomb already down on site, holding it, waiting for the defenders to try to retake? Then of course that's a great position to try to clutch, and you would never save there. Or if you're as a defender 1v2, 1v3, holding the bomb from the attackers, then of course that's also a great position where you can really make a lot of plays. Or if we instead turn these tables and you're an alone attacker having to fetch the bomb from 3 to 4 defenders holding it, then that's quite a slim chance of you succeeding, and you might instead go for the save. As you might have realized by now, there is an infinite amount of scenarios that could become clutches or could become saves, and there is no way for me to give you a direct you should save or you should try answer. The most important thing to consider when you're in that round and when you need to make the decision is if you feel like you can do it. The moment when you think you can win the clutch, you've already won half the battle and you should really just give it a try. Even though every scenario is unique and there are no two clutches that are the same, there are a lot of do's and don'ts that you have to think about. And these are really important that you know by heart, that they're instinct when you play. Because as I mentioned earlier, it's all about decision making in the moment. The biggest and most common mistake I see, and it's actually the easiest to fix as well, is that people freeze up. They get scared and worried about the clutch, so that once they actually decide to move, it's way too late and they lose. The solution is to simply make your decision quickly and act upon that. Once you've gotten past that, it's actually quite simple. Sure, it might not be easy, but it will be simple. The biggest thing to think about at all time is to try to be proactive, make moves, try to force mistakes from your opponents, and create 1v1s. If you can divide the 1 versus 3 into 3 1v1s instead, you'll have a much higher chance of coming out ahead. The best way to do this is by using the knowledge that you already have in the round, combined with a great game sense to understand where your opponents probably will come from and what they plan on doing. If you can catch the first guy off guard trying to set up some utility, and a second guy rushing towards you trying to refrag, you've already turned a 1v4 into a 1 versus 2. Unfortunately, it's quite rare to have enough information to create these 1 versus 1s throughout the entire clutch from the beginning. So what you have to do is to keep gathering information as you're taking your fights, as you're being proactive you'll have to use your utility and game sense to figure out where the others are and where they might come from. To better show what I mean with this, I figure we can go through a scenario from one of my earlier games, where I end up in a 1 versus 3 and I can use some fake defusing and steps to figure out where the entire enemy team is. So here, we have a situation where we're currently 3 on 3, but the enemies are very actively taking B site, and the 2 defenders on my team will die very shortly. It will put me in a 1 on 3 before I even get into garage. Thankfully, it's a pretty decent situation considering the information I have, because I know all 3 are on site, 1 from heaven and 2 from garage. I try to move as fast as possible towards the site, as my teammates are still alive, and the time is about 20 seconds, so the enemies really need to plant very soon. But sadly, before I even get into garage, my teammates die, and all of a sudden they have about 15-16 seconds to set up a post-plant situation and plant the bomb, and I am actually smoked off. So I will have to play it more slowly and not give the enemies too much information to go on. As far as I know, the opponents have no idea where I will be coming from, yet. So I would expect one guy to plant, the heaven person to hold towards CT from heaven, and the third guy to actually push into CT or at least hold the entrance, which gives me some time to get towards the garage entrance and try to hold, as I would expect the planter to then fall back and try to hold garage, as that would be the third final entry point. I give it some time to wait out the smoke, and then I take the peek. And thankfully, the Sage that probably planted does exactly do what I predicted. She peeks into garage, which gives me the first entry without losing any health. I use my utility to try to get out reactions from my opponents, as I mentioned, combined with that fake defuse, and that gives me ample time to hear that both people are shooting on site. Because of this, I try to reposition quickly to be able to catch one of the 2 off guard, and then have a pretty good chance at winning a 1 versus 1 with about half the bomb's time ticked down. Thankfully, exactly that happens. The Raze slowly backs towards CT while still aiming towards the bomb, expecting me to re-peek from the same angle, which gives me a free shot to her head from the side. And after the second kill, I know the time is ticking down and I kind of just have to push towards the bomb. So I try to clear angle by angle, and I manage to find the Phoenix and I win that duel, and therefore I manage to clutch out the round and give us the overtime. Okay, so now I hope that you guys feel like you have a better understanding of what to do when you're out there fighting against the odds, and that you feel confident enough to dare to take the 1v3 fights and to pull them home. I'm also planning on making a follow-up video to this, which will focus on special scenarios, such as a retake or a bomb hold, and I will focus heavily on how to optimize time for yourself, or what to do when the time is against you. So thank you all for watching. I hope that you found the video interesting, and I wish you the best of luck in all your upcoming clutches.